Good morning, folks. Welcome to our webinar, Beginner's Guide to Streaming. My name is Phil Thompson. We'll let the guys introduce themselves. Well, maybe we won't. But if you guys could do me a favor and just go ahead and mute your microphones, those of you who are guests, and also maybe mute your video. Or I guess you can't mute video, can you? I guess you can just stop video. That would be great. We will take some Q&A after we do this webinar. We're going to move fast in this webinar. And we also have a special webinar offer. So we really hope you'll stick around to the very end because we're giving away something I think you're really going to enjoy. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This webinar is brought to you by streamingchurch.tv. We are a company that provides streaming video. The people that are going to be here today are Steve Lacey. He'll be joining us, as well as Michael Gray. I'm Phil Thompson. We've all got a ton of ministry experience and streaming experience. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, let's just jump into it and see how far we get. How streaming video works, we're going to cover that. We're also going to talk about the benefits of streaming video. We're going to talk about the equipment that you will need. We're going to talk about the common problems and hopefully how to solve those problems, how to fix those problems. We'll even touch briefly on promoting your streaming video, and we will also talk about time permits, some free streaming services versus the paid streaming services. So let's just jump into this. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of streaming video. That would be Mr. Michael Gray. Mike, what's the benefits of doing streaming video?
Well, it is, in our modern day, the best advertisement for your church. It's one of the things, one of the many things. You can reach a lot of people that you normally wouldn't be in contact with. Every weekend, somebody types in, find a church near me, streaming church near me, something to that extent. They can find you online and see if your church is the kind of church that they would like to attend. It also tends to be younger folks. It is second nature for them to look at digital first before they ever walk in your church door. And it just gives options. I know a lot of our folks for years have said, hey, I love that I can keep up. I travel a lot. I'm in different states, different countries. I know I can tune in and I can still be part of the service from anywhere in the world. And it can be cost effective. It's one of the key things that I always try to stress. We always try to stress, make sure you have a way that people can contribute to your online services and your online ministry and your ministry as a whole. If you make the option available, they will help you in that process.
All right, so Steve Lacey, we've got a couple things on this slide here about kind of how streaming video works with a software encoder and down below with a hardware encoder. This is obviously pretty basic, but just cover this very quickly for us, would you, sir?
All right, so far left we have the speaker with a camera. So these are the basic things you're going to need to stream, and there's going to be levels of this, but the very basic is you need a camera, you need either a computer or a hardware encoder, and you need a way to get the signal out to everyone. A lot of people ask, well, why don't I just stream by myself? Well, you need the ability to distribute that stream, and that's where the CDNs come in, and then you need viewers, and you need to be able to stream to a multitude of devices, from computers, laptops, mobile devices, Roku, Apple TV. People are watching from all kinds of areas now, so you need the ability to port your stream to that, and the services and the CDN will help you get that stream out there. So the top one shows a path that a lot of churches are following, in that they have a computer and they put an encoder on that computer and stream that way. And the only difference between the top illustration and the bottom one is the swapping out from with a hardware encoder, which is a hardware device that does the job of the encoding, that's dedicated, that's all it does. And a lot of churches that will purchase the hardware encoder to allow you to stream. So this is these are the high level basics of this, and we're going to dive into the details as we go on.
That's right. So you mentioned the different live encoders there. You've mentioned something you put on your computer, which is software. The other one is hardware. So let's just talk real briefly here. Hardware versus software. Well, and again, we're going to move fast here, and so we will have Q&A at the end of this. So we'll take a lot of time for your questions. I know you're going to have a lot of them probably, or at least some. So we'll dive into this a little deeper at the very end with your Q&A. But when you're talking about a software encoder, it's usually less expensive software. Some of them are free, like OBS. You can do some customizing. It's usually pretty easy to set up. They're a little slower when it comes to the actual encoding. Versus the hardware, that in most cases your hardware encoder is going to be a little more expensive. It's a box. It's usually less customizable. Most of the time it's more reliable, and we'll get into that in a little bit because that's all its job is it's just to encode, where if you put software on your computer's doing other things, and sometimes that can create some some problems. And generally hardware encoders are a little faster when it comes to this. So let's talk a little more about cameras here. You mentioned cameras, Mr. Steve Lacey. Well, what kind of camera should I get if I'm going to do live streaming? It's kind of like, what kind of car should I get? Well, it depends on your budget, depends on your needs. Here's one camera. We're going to start with some of the basics here. This is a consumer grade camcorder here. And you know what? They're not too bad today. Back in the old days, they weren't very good, but you can actually get some pretty good consumer grade camcorders. Here's one that's a Canon that we know people have used. Here's something a little better, another Canon, which is being more money. And again, there's all sorts of different models, all sorts of different cameras. It depends on your budget and those kind of things. Here's something that we actually like. We're not going to get into recommendations. We'll do that next month. But these PTZ cameras are really pretty good today. They've come a long ways, and their prices are less, and there's a lot more they can do. So when it comes to cameras, you can do a lot of things with cameras depending on your budget and depending on what you want to do there.
There's an old adage there that the better your lighting and the closer you are to your subject, the less you have to spend on cameras. So keep that in mind.
You are correct. So we mentioned video capture devices. Steve, you mentioned that earlier when you had the slide with software. You've got different devices. So if you're going to stream on your computer and you're going to use software, you cannot, in most cases, plug the camera directly into your computer. You need a video capture device, kind of a bridge, kind of an adapter. Here's one that we don't recommend, but it is cheap, and you could have some problems with it, but I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah, they could be. There's different ones like this out there, but it's, we're putting this out there just to let you know. This one is one you would use if you have a desktop computer, and this is actually put out by, I believe, Blackmagic. It's a slot, and there's multiple kinds of these that you can get. Here's one that if you have like a Mac or something, this is, what do you call that, Steve? You're a Mac guy. Thunderbird, is that what it is? Something like that. Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt. All right. Steve always mocks me because I get these names wrong. But here's
They're
one.
Usually pretty close.
I'm close. I'm in the neighborhood, right? Here's a capture device that we actually like. It's a Magwell. They make, again, there's all sorts of different ones and different things you can look at. We can get into that later with Q&A. Here's a different Magwell for STD. So go ahead.
I was just reiterating, this is the connector between your camera. This will take the input from the camera, which is typically an HDMI connection, and send it to your computer, which is often USB.
Yeah, and that's usually the case here. So again, this is usually for software only. All right, Steve, let's talk a little bit about software encoders.
So there's a plethora of software encoders, and we're going to go through just a few of them. One that has been around for a very long time and has gotten much more popular over these more recent years is OBS. And one of the nice things about it is an open source free software, and it's pretty good. It kind of got its roots through the gaming world, and so it's been tested and It's very robust and it is free. It does have some limitations that we'll get into, one of which is you can only send to one destination from this, and it is available on Mac and PC and Linux as well. So this is multi-platform and allows you to go in various areas. Next is probably going in a ascending price order here, I think, is vMix. vMix is limited to PCs and it has a licensing starting at $60. It has a very generous free trial period. I think it's 60 days, so you can test it out. And this one starts to get you into more of the robust switching elements and you have multiple destinations. You can send up to 3 simultaneous destinations from this encoder. So you can send your stream on to your church streaming site as well as, Facebook or other destinations there, as long as you have the bandwidth at your facility. And this will stress your computer, so you want to make sure you've got a robust computer that's not going to get taxed.
It's worth noting too, these guys are from Australia and they developed it from their church, and so they're believers, and they have different packages, I guess. There's different things they can do, but if you're a church, they will give you it goes above the $60 one. I can't really, the wording here is not in my vocabulary here, but they will give you a break on the price if you're a church. And there's a lot you can work with, as you mentioned, Steve, with vMix.
Yeah, and we've done some previous webinars on software encoder, so you can go back and go to streamingchurch.tv/webinars or webinar, and you'll find we actually had the host, one of the engineers from vMix, help us with that presentation. So you can really, if you want to dive deeper, you can go there. This is another one that has been around for a long time. This is Wirecast, and it is both PC and Mac compatible. They just, well, I'm not sure how recently, but they have within the past year or more switched over to a monthly subscription. It used to be a one-time purchase for the Wirecast, and it was several $100s. They've just moved over to a monthly deal. So it's an affordable tool, and it's very robust. It's a competitor to vMix. This gives you the advantage of multiple platforms, and just some other additional features is some that you may not need for the church as well. They're built in here.
All right. So, Michael, let's talk a little bit about, we just said we talked about software encoders for live streaming. How about hardware encoders?
Well, Steve just mentioned the webinar he was talking about was in May. That was software encoders. And in June, our representative at that point, George from Epiphan, was able to spend June doing a hardware encoder webinar for us. And so if you want to go deep, jump in there. He covers just about everything. But a hardware encoder is it's going to run cooler, it's going to run longer, and it's usually going to run more consistently because it has one thing to do, and that is send that live encoded stream to the internet. So it's not a computer. It has computer components, all of the components, but because it only does the one thing, it is less stress on that device.
And Epiphan Pearl Nano, they make several different models, but here's one of them which we like. And again, we'll get in the equipment recommendations probably next month. But we'll do some Q&A. So these guys, we like these guys from Epiphan. Their customer service is good, but there's other ones out there. Here's one that is actually got some pretty good recommendations, I guess.
Yeah, George mentioned that it's a reasonably decent hardware encoder. YOLO Live, YOLO Box, Mini Ultra. Next month, as Phil said, we're going to do equipment. And we'll have a much more in-depth conversation about what these devices are and what they can do specifically. But the YOLO, as well as this Black Magic, are probably the least expensive all-in-one devices. So this device does switching. and this device also is an encoder. However, if you're not a veteran, this is a little bit harder to set up. You're going to have to deal with some code. It's not as easy as a lot of other devices to set up, but it is a very viable option if you want to do a low-cost hardware encoder.
Absolutely. And again, we'll take some Q&A here. So folks, if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat right now if you want. And here at the very end, we'll give away. We have a special giveaway at the end of this webinar, so hang around here. But also, we'll answer your questions. We'll take plenty of time for that. All right, let's move on here a little bit. Here's something that is something you might need for streaming video. Digital switchers are something that you could use, especially if you have a hardware encoder. Steve mentioned Wirecast as a software encoder that allows you to do some switching. So does vMix, but OBS probably need a little more help with that. There's different digital switchers out there. Roland has a really good name. And so there's different models of Roland switchers out there. There's also some of these other ones like RG Blink. They're a digital switcher you could use. Steve or Michael, you mentioned Black Magic. They have several different models. Here's the basic one. This one I don't believe streams at all, but it does add as a switcher.
Switcher.
And, yeah, and it's, you know, it's got options. And then we've got our Elgato Stream Deck, pretty cheap, but again, it's a digital switcher that you can use for streaming video as well as other functions within your church.
So getting back to basics, just you're going to need a digital switcher if you have multiple cameras. So, or you have, you know, it's also really good for overlays and that sort of thing as well. So when you're moving up in the world and you've got multiple cameras, this is what you would use to, you know, take the center stage shot, take the side shot, get the, you know, switch between shots of multiple cameras.
Although you could, as you mentioned before, you could do that with Wirecast without a digital switcher or vMix. So there are some options out there. All right. Presentation software. I'm going to cover this very quickly. Presentation software. This is something, you know, that you think of, well, I'm going to use this to project on my church's screens, but you can also send this to your live encoder. Presentation software can also help you when it comes to sending images and overlays and things like that. ProPresenter does stream as well. ProPresenter 7 does do the ability to stream as well as bring presentations. I can't remember if Proclaim does or not off the top of my head here, but these are some, again, these are options that you could use as an asset to your streaming video.
Yeah, and typically this would be an additional input to your video switcher so that you can have the overlays, so that you can take what's going into the house and feed it directly into your online stream as well.
All right. And very quickly, you know, we're just touch on this. When it comes to streaming video, audio is very important. In fact, in some ways, I think it's almost more important. Microphones are important. There's all sorts of microphones out there, just like I talked about cameras, you know, all sorts of cameras out there, all sorts of cars out there. What's your budget? What's your needs? I'm a big believer in using something like this microphone, the Shure BLX14R. It's very reasonable, but there's other ones out there that are more expensive. There are those that are less expensive. And of course, the handheld mic. Here, what I'm trying to say here is this. You want to make sure when you're doing streaming video that you have good audio, and somebody needs to be close to a microphone, either wearing one or having it right up to them, not 10 feet away. You want to make sure that people can hear your audio well and it is clear. We'll get into that in a little bit. Here's a Sennheiser. Again, this is pretty reasonable, but we won't cover this a whole lot because it's pretty much a no-brainer. Talking about audio, one thing I do want to mention here, there is a difference between what you hear in the house, and that is if you're sitting in the back of the church and you're mixing sound or something, you know, you hear the vocals, you hear the music, you hear the speaker. It's going to sound a little different online. And so it's important to understand that you really should consider that doing some mixing for your online streaming. Well, how do you do that? Well, you're going to definitely need some headphones. You definitely want to make sure that you have, oops, I'm going to jump the gun there a little bit. You want to make sure that you are listening to the live stream because it's probably going to be a little different than what the house is. And
Yeah.
so there's different ways to do this. You can get an output from your main mixer and send it into your live encoder. But again, you want to monitor it. Or you could even take a different mixer and come out of your main mixer. Is this confusing? Come out of your main mixer and do a mix specifically for online streaming. And there's other ways you can do it as well, which we won't get into. I mean,
Yeah.
I think at our other church, a church I was with Mike and Steve still go to, at one point you guys had an isolator, right? So there's
Yeah.
different ways to do this.
Yeah, one of the things that the sound guy would do for the online stream as well is he would, he'd listen through his headset, he'd switch over to the speakers, and then he would switch over to the playback coming back from the stream so that he would hear that. And then, if he's really going the extra mile, he's going to pull his phone out and listen on various devices because it's, it's mixing for online is much more challenging than mixing for the house because you don't know what the playback mechanism going to be. Is it going to be a phone with a tiny speaker, or is it going to be a home stereo system? So you got to kind of mix and kind of choose the best for all environments.
You don't just set it and forget it. So, I mean, if you get anything out of this, make sure you understand it. People, if you have great video but poor audio, people are not going to hang around. If your video's okay, so okay, and your audio is good, then people will hang around. But they're not going to tolerate bad audio. So we can get into this a little more in the Q&A, or we can certainly talk about it next time. Or we're always available if you're listening to something that's recorded here. Always just go to streamingchurch.tv. We'll certainly help you with some of that. All right, let me move on here because we're running out of time. Lighting. So if you have good lighting, you can get away, as Steve mentioned earlier, with a less expensive camera. But I also want to talk a little bit about how you can bring some color to the back of your stage with lights like this. They're very inexpensive today. These LED lighting now, back in the old days when I first started in ministry, this stuff was expensive, but now these LEDs are less expensive. They can really enhance your subject. They can enhance what's happening behind your subject. So consider lighting. These are a couple examples here for you. But again, they're pretty reasonable and they can really help with what you're trying to do. Let me move on here and let's go to Steve here. Steve, let's talk a little bit about platforms. So you got streaming video. How are people going to see it?
Yeah, so we encourage you to stream to your church website, which would be your hub, and we encourage you to have an interactive platform. People are getting aware that you can do ministry online, and you're going to enhance the experience as long as you have an interactive platform for people to view the stream in, and you could go through and participate with them as they arrive. What we try to facilitate at Streaming Church is take the things that you have in your physical church and replicate them online. So we've got a greeter that stands out front, and as people approach the church, he's shaking hands and saying, "Hey." So online, we'll have an online web host that will do very similar things, and you'll have ushers that answer questions. You'll have an info center. So we encourage have this interaction online, and you can do church online. You can do ministry online. You can reach out to people through the online platform. So this is just an illustration of our platform. So we've got the chat and we have the web host. We have some other things that will allow you to privately pray with people through the Who's Online area. We show where people are showing up from. We have the Bible. We've got the notes for the message are also are part of that, so that as churches go through the message, they have the notes. And we've got the ability to take your platform and customize it to match your branding for your church.
And that's where we're just giving people some examples of what we have here. You
And
could just do video only, but the truth is, really, you want to be interactive.
yeah, you
That's
can
really
do video, and a lot of churches are doing video only, and it's just it gives you a whole nother element to interact and do ministry online when you've got the ability to chat. Another great platform that's out there, that's been out there as long as we have, maybe even actually they weren't publicly available when we were publicly available, but the Church Online platform, very robust, and they require a separate streaming company for the video streaming portion of that, but then they have the chat platform and allow you to do the ministry online. And we integrate. We have several of our churches that are using the Church Online platform as
absolutely.
well.
All right. Let's talk. We mentioned CDNs a little bit earlier. What is a CDN, Steve? Why do we need one again?
So CDN, content delivery network, is just a robust backbone of the internet that's going to ensure that your signal is going everywhere effectively and quickly and easily. So it's just a managed network that you want to get your stream out on. If you have a single point of failure, the CDN will cover for that and make sure, switch you over to another server. And so you want to make sure that when you're going with a streaming company, you want to make sure they have a CDN behind them.
All right, so let's jump into one of my favorite subjects here. Michael and I love this. It's called technical difficulties, common issues in streaming video. Yes, let's talk about it. Here are some common issues: network issues, hardware issues, software issues, other equipment, user error. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. Well, let's talk a little bit about this. So here are some common issues. Steve, what's I already jumped the gun here, but Steve, what's a problem here?
So this is probably the number one issue. So, the number one complaint is my stream is buffering, or it's clipping, or it's pausing and starting, and that's almost always due to the connection between the broadcast location, which would be your church, and your CDN or your streaming provider. So if a lot of people will jump in and say, I want, 8K video is the next thing on the radar. We want to get some 8K video going. So they don't recognize that to send a 4K, 8K video signal is going to take more network upload speed than most churches have. So the number one problem is weak internet. So what you want to do is you want to establish margin between what you're sending out and your capabilities are. So first part of that is do a speed test. And again, a lot of people go, well, my download is, 200 meg. As a download doesn't affect your streaming. That from the viewer side, it would, but from the broadcast side, the only thing that matters is your upload speed. So you want to go and determine your worst upload speed score. And let's assume that it's 10 megabits per second. That means I want to establish a margin at least 2 to 1 so that I don't want to send out more than 5 megabits in order that I don't, because that capability is going to fluctuate up and down. You can run a speed test at speed.streamingchurch.tv, or there's a bunch of speed tests out there as well. And what you want to do is, since typically it's challenging to get a faster connection without signing new contracts or having those people set it up, is you want to adjust your bit rate from your location to know what your capabilities are, establish that margin, and set your bit rate at least half or less of that bit rate. And then you'll be in the safe. As your internet goes up and down, as people start watching the football game from the church or whatever, is going on there, you'll have some margin and you'll be able to stream without any issues.
Who would be watching a football game during the sermon? Come on now. But you're talking about when you say make bitrate adjustments, you're talking about on your live encoder. So you can change your video bitrate on your live encoder, and you can adjust that so that you're not hitting this ceiling. All right. Let's move on here. What's going on? Oh, I'm supposed to talk about this. So here's another issue that I mentioned earlier, and that is audio. I won't cover a whole lot of that since I banged the drum on this a little bit earlier, no pun intended, but poor audio can be a problem. So what you want to do, again, is test and monitor. Test and monitor. Make sure you're always keeping an ear on your audio for your live streaming. It's, you know, it's one thing to look at the stream and say, yeah, it looks like it's looking pretty good, but you want to make sure you test it. Michael, let's talk about some other common issues here. Error.
Error. Yeah, computer issues are big, since more people use a software encoder than hardware encoders, and all kinds of computer issues. You can, your computer can crash, your computer can update. If you call us, we're typically going to encourage you to reboot again, even if you already have. But we always encourage people to turn the computers off when you're not using it, and make sure you boot early. And if there are operating system updates, make sure you do that during the week in case it has a conflict with your software, or then you won't be able to stream on the weekend.
I can't tell you the number of times people have booted up their computer 10 minutes before the service starts to do streaming video. And guess what? Windows decides it wants to do an update. And that
Turn
created all
off
sorts of
automatic
problems.
updates.
Yeah.
All
And
right,
we
Steve.
do see a lot of where we're like, scratching our head. Well, I don't know. Everything looks right. It looks like it should be working. And Michael say, let's do a reboot, and life is good again. It seems like it happens a lot.
Yeah. But I think
Especially,
that I think what's Michael mentioned that is make sure you shut the thing down during the week. And honestly, if you're streaming from a computer, that should really be its sole function.
Yep.
You shouldn't be doing a bunch of other stuff on there. Otherwise, you're asking for trouble. All right, let's move on. We're running out of time. Equipment failure. That's a problem that happens. When I talk about equipment, it's not just the things we've mentioned. It can be all sorts of different things. Always test your lighting, test your microphones, test
Yeah.
you know, all these things, the speed test, those kind of things. Always test. Look, I know it's easy to get into this thing like, everything's going to be fine, we got 5 minutes, let's go ahead and start everything up. Oh no, something's wrong. So you really need to get in early and start to do some of these testing, and it should do it on a regular basis. User error. Well, the guys gave me a hard time about this when I put this in here, but honestly, I see this all the time. People start, maybe they're new to the church or they're new to streaming. Your church has been streaming for a while, but you got a new person in there. Train your people. Look, when you train people, you're investing in your people. So help them understand how to use vMix, help them understand how to use OBS, how to turn the lights on, those kind of things. Very quickly, Michael, as we wrap up here, let's talk a little bit about promoting your streaming. People want to do streaming video. They want people to see it. What should they be doing?
Well, back in the days when I was helping businesses get their website up and running, I always used to tell them that you build a website and you imagine everybody's going to come to it, but nobody but you and your mama is going to see it until you find a way to promote it. Well, your stream is the same way. It is great. It is awesome. And your most excited people at church are going to jump right on board. But if you want to do this well, you have to communicate often and promote your stream inside and outside. You should be streaming to your church website because that's what you can control. You add social media, but your church website is the primary. A lot of big mega churches had pivoted and they no longer stream to social because of the climate and censorship and a lot of other issues. But they wanted that traffic on their website so they could connect and go deeper and help people take a next step that they could control on their own website.
Absolutely. And you can stream to social media, but you can also promote it on social media and point people
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
your website.
Absolutely.
And speaking of social media, there's other things you can do to point people to your live stream with little shorts and reels and teasers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We actually have some great tools to help with that. Our sermon clipper is a great tool. It'll go in, it'll grab you, 4 to 6 great clips that you can share on social. Point back at last weekend and say, oh, wasn't Pastor funny when he said this? Or wasn't this a poignant moment when Pastor said this? Here, check out the rest of the sermon. Get people involved in viewing your content, and then they'll tune in on Sunday and watch your live experience.
Right. You want to always be interactive with your viewers as well. So if you're doing streaming video, and as Steve was saying earlier about the video chat platform, you know, if you've got a video chat platform, use it. Be interactive, have a web host, have people, you know, ask questions, because that will keep people engaged and they'll keep coming back. Let's move on here very quickly. Free versus paid. Well, there's free stuff out there for streaming and there's paid streaming out there. Let's talk very quickly about the pros and cons. Social media platforms. Yeah, you know, you guys know, you've heard of a YouTube, right? YouTube's been around for a year or two, right? I'm being facetious. Facebook has a few hundred viewers. And again, I'm being funny. You got Instagram, you got Twitch, you got X, which used to be Twitter. And you've got LinkedIn, and there's more out there, but those are a few of the things. The pros about these free social media things, well, there are a few people watching out there, a lot of viewers. You've got live videos, and many of those platforms will remain as archives. YouTube videos are sociable, are actually searchable. They're sociable too, but they're searchable. Google owns YouTube, right? And then viewers can post, you know, on there. Most of the time, the free platforms are pretty easy to use, all right? Some of the cons, well, they don't offer any support. I always say that Zuckerberg blocked me years ago, so I don't have his phone number anymore. Not a lot of support when it comes to free platforms. They own your content. That's the bottom line here. They can do whatever they want with it. They're often unreliable. They control the ads, so you're going to see ads and distractions that come on. And their analytics, in most cases, are not very accurate when you're dealing with some of the free stuff out there. And yes, they can block you, mute you, shut you down, right, Mr. Lacey?
Yes, the analytics ones is interesting for me. Is that they're I would say analytics are misleading, is what I would say, because you know, if somebody shows up for 2 seconds on your site, that's a view, and you can have thousands and thousands of these 1 to 3 second views, and they're gonna say, wow, you had, you know, 400 people on your stream on Facebook, when, you know, you look at the real numbers, which is, you know, how many people stuck around. It's something very different.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on here a little bit. Where are we going here? Mike, let's talk very quickly about the paid. What's the pros of having a paid streaming service?
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier. If you're on your website, you own that property online. You can control it. So what you put on there is your content. Nobody's going to take it and use it nefariously, and no one is going to censor you unless, well, anyway, you're not going to be censored on your own website. Like you potentially could be, and we've seen happen on YouTube and Facebook. So you're giving something up in control, but it's designed for ministry within a good platform like streamingchurch.tv or Church Online. And the big piece there is that you can convert. You can help people take their next step in the best ways possible on your website. People ask, hey, how do I contribute to this ministry? It's harder to do on somebody else's platform than on your website. And how you design that is around your look as your brand, and it's fully customized so that you serve your audience, your customer, in a way that is, and I say customer, I mean your attenders, your members and attenders, but they are your customers. So we want to have a better experience for them than just free, if it gives them a better chance of taking a next step, making a faith decision, and or whatever else may be next for them. Great analytics, web analytics are always going to be, website analytics are going to be more accurate, and they're going to give you a better snapshot of who you're spending time with online, in your chats, in your conversations, and their next steps. And you can also completely control the quality of the video. And it's not going to be, most of the free platforms compress your video to a common size that they want to stream. You can do your own custom video quality on a website.
That's true. So what are the cons? All right. So, well, you know, if I have a paid, is there a drawback to having paid streaming service?
There can be. It's not free, so you've got to pay for it. And so, but is it worth it? I found that if we did our stream right, when I was a church online pastor, we never failed to more than pay for the costs of the streaming involved. So we were always in the positive, and it allowed people an opportunity to share in contributing and voicing their voice. Website, there's no built-in audience. Facebook is not showing them your page, although you should be promoting it on social medias. It may take a little more help, but I wanted to say this. We haven't said this in the webinar yet. Anything we're talking about here in this webinar, if you will reach out to us, we'll spend as much time with you as you want to help you work out what's best for you. We're buzzing through this thing really fast, covering so much material, but reach out. I promise you, we'll help you out. We'll walk through it because we've been in your seat before.
Yeah,
There are a few more tools to learn, but those tools are really beneficial and help you connect people in a deeper way to God and as well your ministry.
absolutely. All right. As we wrap up here, I want to encourage people, you know, choose a streaming provider. When you go to choose a streaming provider, obviously we're a streaming provider, but to be unbiased, you want to choose something that's simple to set up and use. You want to make sure that you have lots of support in doing that, whatever company you choose. You want to make sure there's other tools available, mobile apps, website integration, Roku, Apple TV, ministry-related features. You know, there's a lot of companies out there, but how many of them actually have ministry-related tools and features? There are a couple out there. Automated ministry tools are now available with AI. Personal assistance is a big one. So when you're choosing a streaming provider, really keep in mind these things and make sure they have some plans to choose from. Is there anybody, do we know anybody like that? Oh, wait. Yes, we do know somebody. It's called streamingchurch.tv. That's us. I'm doing some self-glossing here. But the truth is we do have ministry tools set up. We do this for the church, for ministry. All right. So here's the offer, special offer as we wrap up. We're going to do Q&A here in just a moment, folks. But
Yes.
we do have an offer. Steve?
Oh, I'm talking about the offer. All right. Well,
You don't have. You can if you want to.
so send an email to is it support@streamingchurch.tv
You got
with
it. Yep,
the
Correct.
that's us.
with the subject free streaming, and we're going to provide 6 months for free streaming to one of the lucky attendees here or
New
post
customers.
attendees.
If you're a new customer, you can get free streaming for 6 months. Send your email right now, support@streamingchurch.tv, make the subject free streaming. This webinar is being recorded and we will make it available soon. And if you want to share it or something, let us know. You send an email and we'll make sure that you get this recorded webinar. And let's talk very quickly. Here are some things that we offer at streamingchurch.tv. We have webinars every month. We got another one coming up next month. We've got some in the past. You can find those out. We have a blog that we always update every week with great resources for you. We have a podcast called Church Solutions Podcast. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, we provide streaming video for churches. February 13th is our next webinar. We'll give you a chance to sign up later this afternoon. We'll talk about equipment recommendations, and you can go to webinar.streamingchurch.tv. You can go there right now and see past webinars, and later today we will update this and you can sign up for the equipment recommendations. That's where we'll get into some details. All right, let's talk a little bit about questions. Do we have any Q&A? You can type them in the chat right now if you have not done so already.
I'm just going to highlight some comments. Thanks, James Dodge. You've been very active in the chat, and you mentioned that it'd be advantageous to have a few people helping out, and having a separate sound guy helps. Maybe have a camera guy and or a director, and we definitely encourage that. That's a great way to do it as well. And you're still there?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Thing is, everything changed and my chat room moved, so now I got to go find all the rest of the.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Uh,
So
I've got one. Keith McGregor is asking if we're partnering with ViewClicks. Yes, we provide streaming for ViewClicks, so they are able to, anyone with a ViewClicks device can sign on and find a church or their home church near them if they stream with us, and they'll be able to watch those services, experience those services on their ViewClicks device.
Yeah, and a little quick background. ViewClicks is a device designed for your elderly senior that requires no technical knowledge, no buttons to push, nothing. You put the device at their location, and you control what shows on their device. It's family photos, it's your church service, it's the weather, and you can do video chats and things like that. So yeah.
James has got another good question.
Another question is, do we count viewers? We count viewers, and we count viewers as a way, in a manner that the church counts viewers. So things that are important to a church are, who are my first timers? Who are my people that are returning? Who's come 3 times? So we track those analytics because we understand, what's important for the church. So we provide some reporting that is kind of consistent with that. So that, because you're gonna treat a first timer, you're gonna do, we also have some automated follow-up tools. Someone comes for the first time, you have the ability to send them kind of a welcome package automatically, and if they come back, you send that, or if they don't come back, you say, hey, we missed you. So lots of analytics that are geared for the church.
Scroll through some of these questions here. Packages, the analytics come with all 3 packages that we have for streaming church. So that all those detailed analytics come with basic
and average time people viewed the stream and things like that. We have logs of the chat, so you can go back and say, wow, Mary was needing prayer for this, and I can go back after the service and follow up with Mary if I need to. So let's see.
What was the link
good
again?
question. How do we view? How do we count viewers? Is it email or IP? It is IP. We want to be specific to the device. The only downside of that, it could be that Phil sometimes uses his computer and sometimes uses his tablet, but his login would also verify that this is in fact user, whatever he gave us as his email and login information.
So yeah, if you have multiple viewers from the same household logging in separately, Mary and Joe, it's going to count them individually as well. So
another good question from James. James, yes, our stream can be embedded in any website that accepts HTML. We rarely have issues with that. Currently, I'm not aware of any websites that it's not super easy to embed our stream into. Also, if you have our DVR or on demand, that is another embed that you can add into your website so that you have robust streaming as well as all the recordings right on your website.
Yeah. It asks the question about storage. How far back can I keep my streams? Our packages are unlimited. So we have some churches that have many years worth of
years and years and years worth of sermons.
Yes.
Some so far back that sometimes they're embarrassed about their old stuff.
Here's a question.
Good questions, y'all.
Yeah, they are a good question. Here's another one. What if my church has multiple services, different kinds of services at the same time? How do I stream 2 services at once, like a Spanish service or
so
an English service?
I mean, with us and with anyone else, you're going to need two separate accounts to send out to different destinations at the same time. So if you got two streams going on at once and you can't, you want to have those audiences separate as well, then you're going to need a couple of accounts. And with us, we recognize that, and we give you a break on any additional accounts.
Awesome.
I'm scrolling through here. The chat platform, is it available in different languages?
It is available in Spanish, Portuguese, and French, the platform. And we also have an AI web host that will speak any language for you as well. So, yes.
Greek? What about Greek?
I'm reading the chat here.
Yeah, we're going through the Greek. AI web
But yeah,
host.
and the chat will also support. It's actually interesting. We've had churches from all over the world streaming, and when there was a bunch of, you mentioned Mandarin, James, a bunch of Chinese characters going through the chat, I was like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. But yes, the people can speak their native language in the chat, whatever native language they are, including non-alphabetic languages.
Vic, I'm not sure on your question, working on filters for the library, like speaker series and topic date. I'm assuming that's going to be in
folders.
the
Folders. You want to use folders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folders are how you can group messages within topics, and anything that you can attach to a folder, you can add it.
Yeah, we recently updated our folders in the Media Vault or the library, and we think it's a lot better. Although there's a learning curve to it a little bit, but you can't animate them, but you can put images on them, and you can move them around easily, more easily. Is that correct English? You can easily move them around. So in most cases, so yeah. All right, what else we got going here?
Good Q&A, y'all.
Yeah,
keep coming. If you got anything, we'll hang out for a couple of minutes and keep answering questions.
Yeah. James had asked about persistent keys earlier, and we've struggled with those for Facebook. Facebook offers what they call persistent keys, and a lot of times we found out, wow, it didn't persist very long, or
yeah.
And so
well, it's part of what you get from a free platform. Their level of consistency is it's kind of persistent, but you may have to go in and refresh it and then get it set up again in order to get it working correctly.
So you're referencing our platinum plan, right? Whereas you can send one stream to us and it can go to your website, but it can also go to social media platforms.
Yeah, and there is a fix for that. If you're not aware, we work with Switchboard. And the integration with Switchboard is on a back-end developer level, so it doesn't require you to mess with a stream key. If you're set up on Switchboard, which is a platinum account tool, then you can basically set it up to where all you have to do is turn your encoder on live, and it's automatically going to create a new live on Facebook, YouTube, or whatever platform you've connected on the Switchboard platform. It's another one of our partnerships that has been really great, because after you set it up, it makes it super easy to stream directly to social, but by sending one web stream out from your website, from your church.
Yeah. Someone had mentioned Restream.io and earlier in our chat, and Switchboard would be a competitor offering the same kind of service that we were integrated with.
Question about embedding. You can embed your Media Vault on your website with us. You can embed the live streaming. We actually have a feature where you can turn your live streaming video chat platform into your on-demand platform on the days you're not streaming. That's an option you could use. So that is very possible as well. What else we got here? We're about done here,
And
right?
yeah, the live streaming is embedded with the chat. So the chat platform, if you want chat on your streaming platform, it's all included in the embed. So you'll have both the chat and the maps and private chat and all
Yeah.
those other tools are also embedded on your
The
on
maps
your
is one of my
church
favorites. I
website.
always love to look at when I'm going to the service. I like to look at where people are streaming from. And we used to find people from all over the world because we marketed our live stream. And so we had people all over the world joining us from other countries. And so it shows you where they're at, generally where they're at via maps. There's a list of who's online. There's multiple tools built into the platform to make it easy to really engage deeply with people who are attending your church online experience.
And you can customize this platform too. I mean, there's some people, I don't want the maps on there, so you can do a custom platform, or you could do video only, as we alluded to earlier. But there's lots of options. Well, one of the things we have is just a lot of different features, and we work really hard to try to make it customizable and help you make it customizable for your church and your ministry. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up here, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should probably wrap it up to honor the time limit here. If you have any further questions, you can actually just go to streamingchurch.tv website and chat with us there, and we'll continue the questions there. We're monitoring the online as well. So
yeah, we do appreciate everybody being involved in the webinar. This will be available later, and we have another webinar coming up. So look for it. If you aren't on our email list, just go to support@streamingchurch.tv, or as Steve mentioned, just chat with us at the website, streamingchurch.tv. All right, we're done here. Thank you, Mr. Steve Lacey, Mr. Michael Gray. Thank you so much, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Yep.
And most of all, thank you folks for being a part of our webinar. And again, if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. I'm Phil Thompson. Please take care of yourselves and each other.